If I didn't start cheerleading, I honestly don't think I would be here today. It's given me a purpose to be here. I honestly would do anything to keep cheerleading.
I think any cheerleader will tell you it's an amazing thing to be a part of, but at the same time, the pressure of the sport can tear you down both mentally and physically.
Cheerleading is a sport which combines every aspect of fitness. You have so many different types of characters in cheerleading. You have your bases who are strong, who hold up your flyer. You have your backs who are there to support the whole stunt and make sure nothing goes wrong. And then you have your flyers who are the ones who need to be tight in the air and perform. Before I started cheerleading, I honestly thought that it was just girls standing on the sidelines shaking their pom-poms, and I think that's what people who don't do the sport or know anyone who does the sport, I think that's what they see cheer as, just kind of a sideline sport. Girls looking pretty, shaking pom-poms and, doing the splits. Whereas now I can see that cheer is so challenging physically on the body, also mentally, and I have a lot of respect for everyone who does cheerleading.
I think cheerleading involves just throwing some people around, a couple gymnastic moves here and there, nothing too skilled, just, yeah. I don't think cheerleading's a particularly difficult sport. I mean, how hard can it be just to stand there for days and throw people? If you're in the air, there's people going to be catching you, there's no real risk there.
So I've grown up around cheer all my life. My mum was an American high school cheerleader, and then she went on to actually coach in Scotland, even though there was times we wanted to kill each other. I'm so thankful for it.
I think because I'm a cheerleader, when I meet especially males, they will often think that I'm maybe stupid or a little bit dumb, that all I really care about is how I look and how I dress, when in reality that's not what it's like at all. But I do think that people hearing that I'm a cheerleader, I do think people will view me differently.
When I tell people I'm a cheerleader, they often react first of all asking, oh, like with the pom-poms and all like in the movies, and I have to be like, no, not at all, we actually don't use pom-poms. And they get really shocked. They're like, oh really? And they actually question themselves. They're like, what is it then? Because no one has any idea.
Cheerleading definitely isn't well understood by those that aren't in the sport. People still ask about pom-poms. I mean, actual cheerleaders haven't used pom-poms since I did cheerleading, which was, I was like 20 years ago. So goodness knows when they stopped. But I think, when they see cheerleaders at the side of football, American football games and things, but it's really actually dancers. People think that's what cheerleading is. And even now, when I go for job interviews or things and I say I coach cheerleading, people are like, oh, coach cheerleading. But really I'm coaching people to throw people in the air. It's a dangerous sport.
I definitely have a skewed perception of what a cheerleader is. I know that they're not what they're made out to be in American movies, but I feel like you can't help but just associate them with that.
If I were to describe a cheerleader, it would be a woman who loves to dance, loves to go on a night out, loves to put on a show for guys.
I think cheerleading's perceived as something that is in American movies, and it's the hottest girls that everyone wants to get with, and they're just a sexual image, and they're not a strong athlete, and it's all pom-poms and short skirts and this and that, and that's not it at all. Society has all these different expectations of you where you can't dress like that or you're called a certain thing or name.
When I think of cheerleaders, I immediately am really envious of how they look. They're always so put together. They are so confident in how they look. They are always happy with how they look, or they seem to be anyway.
As a cheerleader, I feel that outside the sport, I have a lot of expectations to meet, especially when people know I'm a cheerleader. In the ways that I dress and the ways that I act, I feel as though people expect you to be perfect. You always need to be looking pretty, you always need to be ready for the camera, you always need to be smiling, you always need to be positive. Whereas when I go to cheerleading, the amount of acceptance within the sport, you don't have to, you could show up your worst, your absolute worst, and you're going to be accepted there no matter what you look like or how you're feeling. There's going to be people there for you.
They just radiate confidence and enthusiasm and energy all the time.
I think a cheerleader is blonde, attractive, and marriage material. I do know quite a lot of cheerleaders, and I think that they are all crazy, and they all have very outgoing lives and personalities.
Yeah, they're just stereotypical cheerleaders. They love just going out wearing their short dresses, showing a bit of skin, just go on a night out.
If I was to meet someone and they told me they were a cheerleader, I would automatically think that they're very flexible.
I think cheerleaders love the sport so much because they get loads of male attention.
In movies, cheerleaders get categorized and put into the category of being mean girls and being, you know, having a gossipy side and all this kind of stuff. Whereas in my life and experience, that's just not true. It's just the way that it's played in movies.
If you were to tell me that cheerleading has been classified as the most dangerous sport in the world, I'd tell you that you were lying, because there's no way that's right.
I think it does take a lot of effort to be a cheerleader due to the fact you're tossing people up in the air and flying.
Sure, they've got to have core stability and look good, and that takes effort. But in terms of like gym work, you know, cardio work, things like that, compared to other sports, I think it takes very minimal effort.
Cheerleading is more of a sport, right? That like categorically right. Like, is dancing a sport? It's physical, but is it in the Olympics? Does that make it a sport?
I would class cheerleading as a sport in the same way that dance and darts is a sport, in that it requires some sort of skill, but it's not exactly a competitive grind.
I know how much time and dedication and commitment it takes to be a cheerleader through my friends. Their life revolves around cheer. They live, eat, breathe and sleep cheer, and it makes them so happy.
I think cheerleading is a sport as much as football and rugby, and I think that because of the physical aspect, and it can be so mentally and physically draining, such as all the other sports.
When I tell people I'm a cheerleader, especially boys, I do feel quite sexualized a lot of the time. Their first question is usually, oh, does that mean you're flexible then? Or they ask about the uniform, if they can see photos of me in the uniform. And while I love how I look in the uniform, while I love that I am a cheerleader and I can do cool tricks with my body, it does sometimes feel a bit uncomfortable that just because of the sport that I do, I'm portrayed sexually.
Sometimes cheerleading can give people the wrong impression, and you do get looks and you do get double takes and catcalled. And I think it's horrible that cheerleaders get that reputation, because sometimes people often do see cheerleaders as a sexual image.
I think it's very attractive when someone is a cheerleader, or if they tell me they're a cheerleader, they do become more attractive to me.
Just the nature of the sport produces good women.
I know a few cheerleaders. My best friend is part of the cheer team at her university along with her friends. And every time, you know, we're out and we meet guys and they find out that they're cheerleaders, that is the only thing that they can really focus on. They want to know how flexible they are, they want to know like what tricks they can do, they want to know more about how they look in their uniform and things like that. So I think it definitely is appealing to guys.
Yeah, definitely probably been sexualized, 100%. I probably wouldn't have noticed it when I was younger, but I think when at uni, even on like the nights out, we weren't even in our uniforms and things, and just all like the other sports team boys would be like, oh, it's cheerleading, blah, blah, blah. And I remember when I became president of the club, you know, it was a big achievement. Say it was like the rugby president or something. He said, oh, who's the president of cheer now? And someone said it was me, and he was like, oh yeah, that blonde with big tits. That's the only identifier they had for me, was blonde with big boobs. And I just think, actually no, that year I'd managed to coach the team to be undefeated and win a British title. I won a sports award for contribution to the sport, but no, that's the girl that's not president, it's the girl with the big tits. So yeah, definitely been sexualized.
When I'm at cheer, I often look at my fellow cheerleaders and I watch them and I think, wow, they're gorgeous. When they do this tumble, you can see the muscles in their back, or when they jump, you can see the muscles in their legs, and it's just beautiful. And I always think, I hope I have that. I hope I'm that strong and I look that strong and toned and defined.
You have to all look the same on the mat. So to me, that's looking at other people's bodies and seeing if my body looks the same, or is my hair too dark, or am I wearing the right makeup, just because I want to look the same as the team. I always compare myself to the other girls, but also what I see on TV and stuff, because I want to be that perfect cheerleader, which really doesn't exist.
Like, my perception of a cheerleader is that they are very put together and they look really good all the time. So I guess that if the rest of society has that kind of impression of them, they're probably expected and they probably feel that pressure to look that way all the time. For me, the constant comparing yourself to others, I think, would be so draining and so exhausting. I feel like it would take away from actually enjoying the sport.
This age group, you don't know what's going on at like sort of outside cheerleading. Like, you could just say, oh, you're not doing something right, and they literally just burst into tears and you think, oh my God, what have I done? But it's just that they've got so much other things going on. You know, I've coached a lot of girls in the past with mental health issues and eating disorders and stuff, and just because of the sport, like, it's difficult to tiptoe around, and cheerleading is like 80% mental and 20% physical. So if you like are not in the right headspace for it, you probably won't perform.
When I first put on a cheerleading uniform, we had to try it on to figure out what size we were, and I remember feeling so ashamed of myself. I felt like a whale. I did not want to wear that uniform. At a very young age, I lost my mother to cancer, and growing up without a mother was extremely difficult, as it would be for anyone. Even 15 years on now, it's still so difficult to cope with, and it always will be. I have a very fond memory where my mum used to help me get dressed in the morning, and she would always tell me, you know, do up the top button of your shirt so you look like a St. Trinian, or you need to roll your tights up so you can look like the coolest kid in school. When I put on a cheerleading uniform, I know my mum was looking down thinking I definitely am the coolest kid in school.
Being a cheerleader, I feel I need to look pretty and look presentable at all times. And I definitely think that that is shown in the way I dress.
I see my friends wearing their cheerleading uniforms when they're at their competitions, and they always look so good in their cheerleading uniforms, and in a way where I'm so jealous, because I could never wear a cheerleading uniform, especially out in public, and pull it off the way they do with the same confidence that they do.
I think cheerleading uniforms are perfect. They're just nice, small, showing that skin, you know. I mean, they're putting on a show at the end of the day, and the outfits tend to match.
When I was first given my cheerleader uniform, I was still pretty new to the sport, and putting it on, I felt very self-conscious. It was tight, it was short, I didn't like my body, how it was, and I just felt that it was very revealing and it was quite uncomfortable. The sport has given me so much confidence, both within cheerleading and out with cheerleading. I feel so much more comfortable wearing what I want to wear, doing what I want to do, and that's now reflected in the uniform. I now love putting on the uniform.
Even when I wasn't at cheer and I was going to the gym, I would wear like purple because that was the team's colour, and all my sports gear was purple. I used to enjoy like going to training because you get to dress up. Like it was an excuse to wear like a sparkly t-shirt or an excuse to wear a sparkly bow, and like you'd be proud when you wore your t-shirt with your team's name and things on it. So. From being young, I was a flyer, so the one getting chucked about, which was okay when you're like 13, 14, because I was being chucked around with people that were 18. But then when I started to get to 16 and everybody else is 16 and you're getting taller and things, you notice that you're heavier, getting heavier and things. And I had quite big boobs that came in when I was like 14, and they came out of nowhere. And for people getting chucked about, you don't want big boobs. I just started to realise I was not so aerodynamic anymore. It really affected my confidence, knowing that I was getting heavier than everybody else. And even like your coaches would say, like our coach would make us stand on scales and stuff. And I used to love wearing my uniform. I remember back like when I was like 16 and I had these big boobs and they changed our uniforms from being like full to cropped. I hated it. Like that was like my biggest nightmare. And it was sad because I used to love competitions and putting on my uniform because you only got to wear them when you're competing. So and they're sparkly and they're fun and they made you confident. When they turned crop, that just totally ruined it for me. I think especially being a flyer and being thrown about, like you're the focal point. So like when we had the cropped uniforms, all I could look at is like, if I had my leg behind my head, I'd be like, oh God, look at my fat, look at that. You know what I mean? Like it was horrible.
So when I was around 15, I got asked by one of my coaches if I would stay behind the class and sit down for a chat. And she said, I can see that you're getting a bit chubbier. And I was like, what? I was 15. I was like, what's chubby? Like, I don't care. And she was like, yeah, you're like, I can see that your skin's going over your shorts and you've got some body rolls here and there. I think you're gonna have to start looking at your diet and tweaking it.
And there you go. Good. Make sure you keep your chin up and your tummy inside.
I'd never had a food thought in my life that was negative. Like I'd never thought of food as something that wasn't just a day-to-day thing you did. And she told me I was gonna have to really work on, at break time, not eating as much at school so that I was light for cheer, basically. So from then on, I think I really started to get confused to why they saw that and why they thought that was happening to me.
Because I had done flying before and that's all I'd done and all I'd trained for, I came in and said, well, like the first taster session, yeah, I want to fly, that's fine. And the girls that were running it then looked me up and down and went, you're too heavy to fly. So even though I was a flyer with level 4 experience, trying out for like the level 1/2 team, I got told to base because I was too heavy. Those girls left, I took over coaching and then thought, you know what, no, I'm not too heavy to fly. Like it's all about your technique and things, and ended up flying for the team and we won everything. We were undefeated that year. So it wasn't anything to do with me being too heavy.
2019 in level 2 co-ed.
Cheerleading is good for self-confidence, but also if you're the one being lifted, it can, and I think people then think it's an excuse to be allowed to comment on your weight. So it definitely is affecting my confidence in bad ways, but also in good ways as well.
I think that cheerleading can have an effect on mental health because they are expected to be so perfect in and outside of the sport.
It comes with all the expectations of, the outfit and the hair and having to look a certain way to do the role, whereas many other sports, there's no real physical aspect of looking good while doing it. It's just a physical activity.
When I was younger, I used to be a competitive gymnast, going to training probably 3-4 times a week, and I really, really loved it. Because it was an individual sport, I think I put a lot of pressure on myself to be the best and to be perfect at all times. And with that, I ended up becoming quite ill, and I ended up spending 5 years in hospital with anorexia. I put so much value on winning. I thought of myself as a failure if I didn't win. I wanted to be the best, and I would do everything I possibly could to be the best, even though it meant running myself into the ground both physically and mentally. When I was in hospital, my doctors told me that I would never have a healthy relationship with exercise again. They told me that I wouldn't go to uni and that I wasn't allowed to do sports ever, really. Coming to uni and proving them wrong, and then starting cheerleading has honestly changed the way that I see sport. I now have such a healthy relationship with exercise. Because it's a team sport and not an individual sport, I feel that there's a lot less pressure that I put on myself because it's about the whole group doing well, not just myself.
In cheerleading, there's quite a common misconception that the sport is predominantly female, which to be honest is quite funny, considering if you go back to when cheerleading began, the first ever team was actually started by males and was an all-male team. Whereas now, obviously there is quite a good portion of females within the team, but the male cheerleaders are some of the strongest people you can get on a cheerleading team.
Women's sports tend to just be less competitive, so maybe we'd have some more advanced cheerleading if we kept it to males.
I didn't even know male cheerleading existed.
If I met a male cheerleader for the first time, I would automatically think they were gay, or I've actually never met any yet, but I would probably double ask them if they were actually a cheerleader and think they were joking.
There's often a stigma in cheerleading around gay cheerleaders, being that any male cheerleader should be gay and any female cheerleader can't be gay.
When you compare them to guys who play rugby or football, they're not perceived in the same way. We see those guys to be really masculine, really attractive, whereas male cheerleaders are probably deemed a bit more feminine, possibly even gay, when you're only going based off of the fact that they're a cheerleader.
I think males in cheerleading is a bit odd. Presumably they're gay or have some tendency towards that side, but it's not something I could see many men being drawn to.
I met one of my best friends through cheerleading. She was going through cancer treatments, so we all just kind of knew Abby as this strong girl that would come to school when she could, but I wasn't friends with her, I just knew of her. Then she showed up to our cheer tryouts one year. So I went home to my mum, who's the cheer coach, and I said, "Mum, Abby's got cancer, surely she can't be doing cheer." And my mum was like, "Kylie, she was one of the best ones there today, one of the strongest." So she came along and we ended up bonding straight away and we grew super close. I'll never forget, I saw her the next day at cheer and she came running and jumped into my arms and knocked both of us over. And we were always inseparable from then on.
Kylie, I'm your lucky charm. Oh, that's so cute, Abby. She is though. That was a good one.
She is a very, very strong cheerleader. She got a tumour in her lung drained, which is a very painful operation, and the healing process is very difficult and the recovery time is very long. But 3 weeks after, she competed and she ended up winning the category and went on to win the highest scoring stunt group in the whole competition. And she never stopped. She sadly passed away that Christmas. She often said that she lived for cheerleading. It was the thing that kept her breathing and she loved it so much. She actually was buried in her cheer uniform. So Abby got told a year before she passed away that she didn't have long left. So she made it very clear that she wanted to make a difference and have her charity. So she created her charity, which works very closely with the cheer team she was on still to this day. The cheer community was very supportive for the team she was on after her passing. The whole of the UK cheer had posted something on their Instagram about Abby, and it was really supportive. So obviously cheerleading was something me and Abby shared. It was a passion we spoke about all the time and we were always doing. It was how we bonded, and I'll always be grateful for cheer for giving me Abby and bringing her to me. I love cheer so much because it keeps us close and it keeps me bonding with her. Even if she's not physically here, she's still in cheer. And when I think of cheer, I think of Abby and her love for the sport, so it keeps me close to her. I noticed when I took a year out of cheer 1 year, I noticed such a dip in my confidence, and I ended up having real struggles with my mental health that year because I didn't have that support from cheer as much as I normally had, and it really took a toll on my identity, and I felt really lost and didn't really recognise myself.
Probably has changed my identity a bit, like especially back at uni. Like I was proud to be a cheerleader, you know. I don't want to leave it behind. Like cheerleading's unique in the way that once you leave uni, it's just one of those sports that a lot of time you have to give up. Like all my friends that played netball at uni still play netball, they just play it in an adult team. Whereas cheerleading, you don't have that. There's like not a lot of adult teams.
Everything I've ever done is to make my mum proud, and I believe that being a cheerleader and finding who I am through the sport and being as strong as I am is making her so proud.
When I think of my teammates, I would describe them as the strongest and most resilient people I know. Their determination when they show up to practice, even if they're having a horrible day, they will always try their hardest. They always try and bring fun and energy to the place. And if somebody is having a bad day, they will always be there to bring them up. Genuinely, the cheerleaders that I know are the most amazing people in my life.
And I even think of like the girls that I've coached like since leaving uni. Like it's just nice to see everybody grow, and like I'll be following their stories like once they leave, and I'd like to think that I've made sort of like a positive impact on them, but we'll see.
And second,